Vietnamese proposal for a permanent normalized trade relations. Before consideration of that issue, I wanted to take a few moments to discuss what I believe to be the beauty of freedom and the power that just one individual can have in personifying its truly transcendent value. Recently, I had the opportunity to come to know a young woman in Orlando, Florida, a constituent of mine named Liz McCausland. She contacted my office some months ago with a seemingly simple request. She wanted to see her mother. Her mother is Cuc Foshee. She goes by Cuc. And at the time, Liz's request, Mrs. Foshee, a United States citizen born in Vietnam, was sitting in a Vietnamese jail. She had been in that jail for some period of time. She had not been charged with a crime. She had not had the benefit of counsel. She had not been informed of the charges against her in any way, shape, or form. And for several weeks, immediately after her arrest, her family didn't even know where she was. This ordeal began in September of 2005. She had no hope for due process. She had the need for some medical care and attention, and this went wanting for several weeks, if not months. She finally began to have contact with the United States consul, and it was a 20-minute visit once a month. At the time of her arrest, Ms. Foshee had gone to Vietnam, her native country, as a United States citizen, to attend a nephew's wedding. The Vietnamese government at some point or another finally said that she was suspected of terrorist activity. Now, the fact is that it should not come as a surprise that the Vietnamese government was not fond of Mrs. Foshee, because, you see, she was one of those people that I certainly can identify with who believe that it is a right of every person, no matter where they live, to elect their leaders. Something as simple as what we did on November the 7th in this country that we so take for granted. There are still people around the world who are denied such a right. The Vietnamese people today cannot elect their leaders. Mrs. Foshee believes that a Vietnam that is free to elect their leadership is a Vietnam that would respect also the rights of all of its people. And so, because she was someone that was vocal in the Vietnamese American community, spoke freely of her hope and wishes for her country, of her native land, she actually became an obvious target to a government that felt threatened by the voice of just a common citizen that believed that she should speak out. For that, Cuc Foshee and several other Americans, in fact, were arrested, interrogated, and sent to jail without the knowledge of when or if they would ever be released or allowed to return to the United States. But many people went to work on this problem. And today I want to thank our Secretary of State, Condoleezza Rice, for her interest in this matter. Particularly want to thank United States Ambassador to Vietnam, Michael Marine, and the staff of the United States State Department and others, whether in Vietnam or in the State Department here, who worked on her case. Volunteers came to help. The law firm of Holland & Knight offered their services pro bono. In addition to that, I want to particularly note and thank members of my staff who worked diligently, passionately, to seek the release of Mrs. Foshee. Melissa Hernandez in my office in Florida, John Getches here in Washington, worked hand in glove with Mrs. Foshee's daughter, Liz McCausland, and others to see that Mrs. Foshee came safely back to the United States. She has been returned to the United States, and it has been a wonderful blessing to her family. We recently celebrated in Orlando her return home. Congressman Rick Keller was also there, my colleague, who also step by step was a partner for me in seeking the release of Mrs. Foshee. So the permanent normalized trade relations between the United States and Vietnam came to be considered. I objected to the legislation being considered until I was confident that Mrs. Foshee would be able to receive the kind of due process that we just expect, as a matter of course, that she deserves under any observance of human rights, and that she would be back with her family in Orlando. We can happily say that that has now occurred. Mrs. Foshee's freedom allowed me to lift any objections to consideration of the PNTR status as it relates to Vietnam. And while I will vote for that today, I must say that concerns still remain. Vietnam's disregard for the rule of law is something that is not only troubling, but which will make normalized trade relations difficult with free societies. It would be good for the government of Vietnam to understand that tolerance as it relates to people's willingness to practice religion as they see fit is important to join the family of nations in a full and complete way. I appreciate the cooperation of the government of Vietnam in allowing Mrs. Foshee to come back to America to be free, but I must suggest that at the same time, it is hollow if it is only for Mrs. Foshee because of the pressure that was brought to bear about her case. The right of people to freely speak, the right of people to elect their leaders, the right of people to live in a democratic system is the only way for the people of Vietnam to fulfill the promise that they have, to fulfill the promise that can come through normalized trade relations with the United States. People of Vietnam not only can have normalized trade relations, they must live it. They will find that the rule of law will be a troubling matter if it is not observed. Whether it is foreign business people traveling to Vietnam, whether it is the rule of law as it applies to contracts, it is a fundamental and essential integral part of normalized trade relations. Mrs. Foshee's hope was that others in Vietnam would have the opportunity to live in freedom like she has tasted here in America, and I hope that that day will come as well. My career as a public servant has been irrevocably influenced by this experience. I believe that I will never do anything greater than to have played a part in securing the freedom of one individual. I know what it means. I understand what it is like to live under oppression. And I believe that all people, no matter where they are entitled to live with the dignity and the hope that comes from understanding that there is freedom and there are human rights that are observed. Each of us owes a debt of gratitude to Mrs. Foshee for taking a stand for freedom, and in her own example, leading us to know that it has a value, even if at times a price must be paid for it. Mr. President, now I'd like to ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of H.R. 6344, which was received from the House.
Clerk will report.
H.R. 6344, an act to reauthorize the Office of National Drug Control Policy Act.
Without objection, the Senate will proceed to the measure.
I ask unanimous consent that the bill be read a third time and passed. The motion.
The Senate will proceed to the measure.